www.offthecorner.net. I'm Rallo, and you're watching the Fact Project. FACT is an acronym that stands for Fundamental African-Centered Thought. The goal here on the Fact Project is to convey some thoughts and some information to members of our community. Now, we're slated to have a guest on today who's going to give us the history of the 5% nation of gods and earths, the very popular subject, and our conversation about the nation of gods and earths is ongoing because a lot of people are interested in that history and they're interested in the culture. And it's been a very important part of hip-hop culture, and it has impacted the hip-hop culture in many ways, in a lot of ways I think people don't totally understand. So we like to bring experts on from the nation of gods and earths to flesh out that history, the lessons, as well as the culture. We've had Brother C. Allah in the past, and he's graced us with his presence, and he's given us a lot of information on the nation of gods and earth. So we're patiently awaiting our guest today. We're going to hope he joins us, but in the meantime, I would like to make a few announcements. Brother Ajay Tyemba of Harlem Liberation School has started a GoFundMe for Brother Dhoruba bin Wahad. If you watch the Fact Project for any number of weeks, you would know that we mention this every week. Brother Dhoruba bin Wahad was a political prisoner. He was a New York Panther, as well as a long-distance revolutionary for our people. Brother Dhoruba is in his 80s now, I believe, if I'm saying it right, and he's facing some health challenges. And so Brother Ajay Tyemba was thoughtful enough to start a GoFundMe for Brother Dhoruba bin Wahad to assist him in his medical expenses. So the GoFundMe for Brother Dhoruba bin Wahad is in the chat. So I would recommend people go there and give a donation to Brother Dhoruba bin Wahad. He's been on his quest and his journey and his sojourn for a long time. So we hope people will continue to donate. Brother Ajay said he has actually reached his goal, but people are still continuing to donate. And so although they reached their goal, they're still accepting money at the GoFundMe for Brother Dhoruba bin Wahad. So that link is in the chat. Speaking of Brother Ajay Tyemba, I would like to send people to his channel, Harlem Liberation School on YouTube, where you can get more interesting conversations like this one and any number of other conversations that we've had here on the Fact Project. So definitely go to Harlem Liberation School, and I would suggest people subscribe to that, as well as subscribing to Full Blast Radio and DJ Tiger if you have not already. Speaking of which, we had yesterday, Simo Tap, in accord with the Clear the Airways Project, they did another Zoom around the Netflix boycott, which still continues. Netflix has, for those of you who may or may not already know, Netflix put out an animated reboot of the classic television show Good Times, and it depicts Black people in a very disrespectful, very deplorable way. It is supposed to be satire, but it's actually ridicule. And we've had the great Dr. James McIntosh on the program, who is a doctor of psychiatry. And he explained the 7 subtle messages in the Netflix animated reboot of Good Times. And so they had a Zoom yesterday. We're hoping to get them on the program again soon so they can talk about what the end result of that Zoom was. But either way, the call is to cancel your Netflix subscription if you have not already done so. Many people have already done that. And if Netflix is feeling the pinch, they're acting as if they're not. So we would recommend people continue to cancel their subscription to Netflix. In addition to that, there is a not a GoFundMe. Check that. There is a change.org petition. We would urge people to get on change.org and sign the petition against Netflix. because if this was any other group of people being depicted in this disrespectful way, those groups would definitely lash out and shut down Netflix. And so we're on the quest to do the same thing. In addition to that, Dr. James McIntosh has written an open letter to Netflix that anyone can copy, paste, and send to Netflix themselves if they choose to do so. You can do that by visiting offthecorner.net. That website again is offthecorner.net. And for those of you that just joined us, we're patiently awaiting our guest. We hope he joins us to talk about the history of the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. He came to us very well recommended by Brother CLR, who we had on the program talking about the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. So we hope he joins us soon. We are making some announcements until he can join us. In addition to that, I also like to mention that we had Brother Ajay Taimbo on last week, and he talked about the impact and the importance of the Black Power movement. He also talked about his new book, which is called WUKUSU. WUKUSU is an acronym that stands for Wake Up, Clean Up, and Stand Up. The subtitle is a self-empowerment handbook. The response to that was very good. So if anyone wants to get a copy of that book, you can do so by emailing Brother Ajay Taimbo. The email is TrueSelf. That's TRU, true with no E. So TRUSELF 143 at gmail.com. Again, to email Brother Ajay Taimbo to get WUKUSU, which stands for Wake Up, Clean Up, Stand Up, a self-empowerment handbook by Brother Ajay Taimbo. You can do so by sending him an email at TrueSelf, TRUSELF 143 at gmail.com. That email again is TRUSELF 143 at gmail.com. I'm seeing people in the chat starting to line up already. If you have any comments or questions in the chat, by all means, put them in the chat, and I'll do my best to read them as we go along. So we are still waiting for Brother Peace Allah to join us to talk about the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. I know Brother has a job in the medical industry, which calls on him to be pulled in different directions on short notice. So we're hoping that he still joins us, and so we're still awaiting his arrival to talk about the history of the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths, which I think is an important subject. And I think when Black History Month comes around, or even Black August, 5% Nation of Gods and Earths is not mentioned as often as I believe it should be. And any number of people have written books on the subject. There's even some documentaries on YouTube about the subject. So would like to think that Brother is going to join us to talk about the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. But in the meantime, my book, The Fact, which is the subtitle is Fundamental African Centered Thought. The subtitle is Lessons and Solutions for African People. This is also available blackbookshop.com. You can find that book at blackbookshop.com. I'm going to begin with a lesson from that book while we are waiting the arrival of our guest. The lesson is on the Nguzo Saba. Now, we had a few weeks ago, Sister Sheila Brown came on and she talked about the Queen Mother Amy Jacques Garvey. And I think when we talk about the Nguzo Saba, which people say is the 7 principles of Kwanzaa, it's actually the 7 principles of African heritage, which is what I titled it in my book. The story of Amy Jacques Garvey is included in the story of the Nguzo Saba. And we had a guest on who was an expert on Queen Mother Amy Jacques Garvey. And I explained to her Amy Jacques Garvey's involvement with the creation of Kwanzaa as well as the Nguzo Saba, and she did not know that. So I'm going to begin to share from my book while we wait for our guest to talk about the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. We're going to talk about the Nguzo Saba, if we could. So it says the Nguzo Saba, 7 principles of African heritage. One, as we know, is Umoja. Umoja is unity. To strive for and maintain unity in the family, community, nation, and race. These are ideas and principles that we should embrace every day. Much like how the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths, they go over the lessons every day, and the drill is what's today's mathematics. I feel like the Nguzo Saba is something that can be used in that same vein. Unity is defined as the state of being unified or joined as a whole. The concepts of Pan-Africanism and Black nationalism rely on the idea of unity. Black nationalism is about uniting Black people to work together to build a nation. Pan-Africanism is about uniting Black people around the world to build a global world community. Unity is necessary if we are going to organize for nation building. If any group of people hope to get anything done, they must first have unity. I think that's key. If any group of people hope to get anything done, they must first have unity. We must act in one accord as a unified group. We also must support and protect each other. The lack of solidarity and disorganization among people of African heritage is a major obstacle that keeps them from advancing. I'm going to say that again. I think that's worth repeating. The lack of solidarity and disorganization among people of African heritage is a major obstacle that keeps them from advancing. Years ago, the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey said the greatest weapon used against Black people is disorganization. However, without group loyalty, unity is impossible. We have to be hyper-focused on group loyalty in an effort to have unity. If we want to advance, the concept of unity is imperative. Now, this is for anybody, whether you be Pan-African Black nationalist, which for me it would be most common sense thing. If you're Nation of Gods and Earths, if you're Sunni Muslim, whatever we're doing as a group of people, we must have unity, or else it's going to be hard to achieve whatever the desired goal is. Number two, of course, is Kuji Chagulia, which is self-determination. To define ourselves, name ourselves, create for ourselves, and speak for ourselves, instead of being defined, named, created, and spoken for by others. And I think we got Brother Peace Allah joining us. So we're going to go ahead and bring him in. We appreciate everybody's patience. Peace, Brother Peace Allah. Thank you for joining us on the Fact Project today, brother.
Peace. I appreciate the invite. I apologize for the delay. I had an emergency.
Yeah. It's no worries, brother. I'm losing your audio. You're kind of coming in and out a little bit. Okay,
yeah, I'm in my car. Just left the airport. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
At the same time.
Yeah, you're going. You're still going in and out.
Can you hear me better?
I can hear you better now. So we're gonna do our best. So
okay.
we brought you on to talk about the nation of Gods and Earths, and we had Brother C. Allah on a few times to talk about the history and the culture of the nation of Gods and Earths, and you actually came very highly recommended. So I will begin by asking you, like, what was your introduction into the culture and the lessons of the nation of Gods and Earths? Like, what is your personal story? How did you originally come in contact with this?
Well, coming from another country, the UK, by way of Caribbean parents, I was totally ignorant of myself in terms of being Black, being of African descent, being original. I was clueless. And I was so clueless and messed up psychologically, I was bleaching my skin at a time.
Wow.
Yes, that's how deep it is. See, the scars of slavery, you know, of our enslavement are deep, and a lot of it is psychological and emotional, which the average person does not see when they look at themselves and look at other people. So it was from that psychological trauma that I was introduced to the knowledge of self by way of the 5% Nation, the Gods on Earth, when I was 17, and that was a very turning point in my life. Back in 77, August of 77.
Wow, 77. So wow, you
That's
going
correct.
Wow, you're going back. And so
I'm
now
going back.
How did you come into, like, did you know somebody in the neighborhood? Did you have an older brother?
No. It was a sequence of things. You being on the bus, going to school, you hear certain things being said, and it kind of piqued your interest. Then there was a young man that I met out of Queens, and he was a martial artist, and he and I sparred. In other words, play fight, sparring, the
Sure, sure.
language. And I held my own because at that time I was living with a Jewish family, and the Jewish guy, Gary, he had a gym in his basement, and he was a fan of Bruce Lee, and he used to practice. And I practiced with him, so I got a little introduction there. So when I was sparring this brother named Supreme out in Left Rack City, I noticed that he had a large support around him. And I come later on to find out that was a lot of other guards and people in the community, and they was interested and curious to see exactly what was going on and who was I, And over time, I met another brother, another guard named Sabu Mathematics, and whose physical was Sahin, and they was Spanish-speaking brothers, and that's how I was introduced and brought in, and officially took the name Peace Law.
Okay.
My full name is Universal Magnetic Peace Law,
Okay.
also known as AKA TYSUA and Tyson.
Okay.
But that's another story. But that was my introduction back in '77.
Interesting. Okay. Now, that's your story, but now what is the, based on what you understand, what is the origin of the Nation of Gods and Earths? Like, how did this come about?
Well, there was a black man who chose the name Allah, rightfully so, back in 64, 63, 64. And he originally was part of the Nation of Islam under the leadership of Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X. And he saw a void with the youth and people in the street. And he took it upon himself to branch out and share this knowledge that typically would not be known or available to your general public unless they came in contact with somebody from the Nation of Islam and went to the mosque. It's just like running into somebody that is a Christian, but in order to see them and really participate in what they're learning in the church, you have to go or visit the church in order to get that knowledge. So the father, leaving the church, aka mosque, brought this knowledge to the streets, and the people that he taught were wide range, but primarily the youth gravitated to this knowledge, and thus the Nation of the 5% in '69.
Okay. And so, this is coming, some of it is coming from the lessons that was taught by Elijah Muhammad. Now, I understand that.
Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Okay, correction.
No
I understand that he got most of this from Master Farad Muhammad, and he answered the questions to the lessons. What do you know about that?
Well, Master Farad Muhammad was the one that introduced the knowledge to the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. So the foundation of the lessons coming from the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, Master Farad Muhammad and Elijah Muhammad, respectively, because Elijah Muhammad was a student that Master Farad Muhammad took on. So that is the foundation from which the lessons or the teachings come from in terms of who the original man is and who the colored man is.
Okay. So do you think the Nation of Gods and Earths would have come about and existed were it not for Master Farad Muhammad?
It's possibly so, and in one way or another. And the reason why, there's always been resistance, pushback to oppression by our people. It's always been there. So there's always been an element of the resistance, aka the 5%. There's always been a resistance. Many of different names.
Work.
That
Recognize.
but nevertheless, what they have done and what they were doing is in line of resistance or pushback. Meaning that we deserve better than how we're being treated. And there has to be a reason why we're being treated in the way that we are. So the most honorable Elijah Muhammad through Master Farad Muhammad, and now the father, Allah, made gave us the understanding as to why we are being treated the way that we are being treated. Why? Every child, very inquisitive. Why? Understanding is the best part. So once you understand why, then you can make sense of what's taking place.
Okay, when the father left the Nation of Islam, now that's another thing, because some people say he was kicked out. Some people say he left on his own accord. What do you understand about his break with the Nation of Islam?
Well, I was not personally there. I've heard different things. So all I can do is speculate and go by what I've read, what I've heard, because I was not there in '69. But the end result is that we are blessed today to have this information, to have this knowledge that we normally would not have. So that's what I would say to that. Some was, depending on who you talk to, you're going to say he was kicked out, pushed out, or he left on his own. Whatever the case may be, it was a positive that it happened because the chain of events led to where we are right now.
Okay, now when he
and
left,
I have and let me say this. I personally have a lot of respect for the Nation of Islam. So for me personally, there's no beef. Everybody's gonna have something to say, good, bad, or indifferent. But at the end of the day, it's a positive that we have the Nation of Islam as well as some other groups.
okay, so when the Father Allah left the Nation of Islam and he took the lessons to the street, there was a little bit of beef between himself and the Nation of Islam because he's giving the lessons now for free, where that's something you would have to join the mosque to get. Now, if you were around since '77, you may have been exposed to some of this. What do you know about that kind of schism that took place between the 5% Nation of God's and Earth and members of the Nation of Islam?
Repeat that, please.
I want to blow up my phone now.
Okay. Yeah, so I was saying that when the Father Allah, who was the founder of the 5% Nation of God's and Earth, for the people that are just joining us, when he left the Nation of Islam, he took those lessons and he started teaching them to the youth in the street. The Nation of Islam had a problem with that because you had to join the Nation of Islam in order to get those lessons, and he was giving them for free in the street. And so there was some beef between 5% Nation and the Nation of Islam. What do you know about that beef that was going on back then over the lessons?
Well, you're going to have people feel a particular way, and I guess some of it is justified. And the reason being is just like if you join a company, you're a member of a company, there's documents and paperwork, whatnot, that is exclusive to the employees and to the people that work with that company. So for you to take information that was primarily for the members only, that I can understand that. But sometimes we have to do things for the greater good and break protocol.
And that's
what I got to say about that.
Okay.
Hey, look at the result.
So now Nation of God. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Now, you also have to remember when you're dealing with young people primarily, it's up to the mature adults to guide young folks as to what's what, because it's just like you being the mature man that you are. If you had a weapon in your home, you want that weapon to be secure so that young people that may be in a home don't get a hold of it and hurt themselves or hurt other people. So knowledge can be used for good or evil. So, so I can understand, both sides of the argument.
And he left, the Father Allah I'm talking about now, he left the Nation of Islam in 1963. Malcolm X was still there at the time. Is that the official start of the 5% Nation of God's and Earth, or was the official start like 1964? What year did this begin?
Well, I think it's officially 64.
Okay.
October of 64, to be precise, But
so,
like I said, it's about the resistance. It's about the pushback. It's about us getting our act together, if you will. So, whether you get your act together by way of the Nation of Islam, Nation of God's and Earth, or any other group that is sincere about improving the quality of life for Black people at home and abroad. That's what it's about, and that should be the focus.
Okay, so now you're talking about resistance against the system, and I get that.
Yeah.
And, now, would you consider the 5% nation of gods and earths to be part of what became known as the Black Power movement?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt. Absolutely. Because when you just to say Black Power, that means there must be something on the other side of Black and power. So anytime you can talk about positively about Black people, that's an act of power within itself, just the language and the terminology. Just like right now, you have the word woke. Well, what is the opposite of woke? Sleep. So we are no longer sleeping to the truth and to who we are. We're now woke. We're now awake. And once you're woke or once you're conscious, now you can recognize what's happening within you and outside of you and act upon it.
Okay.
Correctly.
Understood. So the idea of Black nationalism is the social, political, and economic cooperation of Black people nationwide. And the idea of Pan-Africanism is the social, political, and economic cooperation of Black people worldwide. If you could encapsulate the message of the nation of gods and earth into one statement like that, how would you describe it?
Do for self by any means necessary.
Oh, I'm losing your audio, brother.
Oh. Pardon me? Oh, sorry. Oh, man. I know my phone keeps ringing and people keep, oh, my goodness.
Blowing you up.
All right.
Blowing you up. So
Yeah,
say that again.
yeah.
Say that again.
I said, do for self would be what I would say, because doing for yourself has to encompass all areas that's necessary for us to sustain ourselves and move forward and create a better future for our families.
Okay.
So that has to include economics. It has to include that. Economics is the fuel that will finance as well as to support and sustain everything else that we need and want to do. You gotta have it. Without that, you can't have, without economics, then you can't have food, clothing, and shelter. This is economics. That has to be included.
Now that sounds a lot like what the Right Honorable Marcus Garvey taught, and I know Elijah Muhammad was in the Garvey movement. Do you think that Marcus Garvey's movement impacted the nation of gods and earths at all?
For those that know, yes, the Nation of Islam copied, mirrored the most honorable, Marcus Messiah Garvey. He was the man that came here to America and taught us to love ourselves and to recognize Africa as being a place of splendor, of excellence, and not some jungle, uncivilized, world that we've been hitting the head too many times with. So yeah, he introduced the red, black, and green. So the Nation of Islam definitely copied and mirrored the most honorable and the most honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. Yes.
Okay.
Because he came before. When you check the dates, that's
Absolutely.
why knowledge will always be the foundation. Let's look at the dates, the timeline, and put things in its proper perspective.
Absolutely. Now, the lessons say that the original man is the Asiatic black man.
The phone.
Brother, peace Allah is
Good. Now I can't hear you.
I was saying you in demand today, brother. They blowing you up today.
Okay, there we go. There we go. Yeah.
No, they blowing you up today, man. So
Yeah.
when the Father Allah left the Nation of Islam, was justice involved with the Nation of Islam? What do you know about justice?
From what I understand and learned, that was his right-hand man. That was his right-hand man.
So now, was he in the mosque at the time, or did he meet justice afterwards? What's the timeline there?
I really can't say. I'm not going to say. I've been having a lot. I'm not going to say. I really don't know. But what I do know, that was his right-hand man.
Okay.
That's why we say Allah and justice. Yeah, that was his right-hand man.
Okay. So
years again, you're talking about a time when I personally was not there. So I'm going by, what is written and what different people have said. So, yeah.
Understood. So now, if you say you got involved with this in '87, world famous Supreme Team had a radio show on WHBI, where they would
Went out again. Great.
Okay. Now I was saying if you got involved in 1977, then you were
I
around.
was young, 17
years old. So
Yeah.
now when you after you got involved, the world famous Supreme Team, they began to do a radio show on WHBI. This is on Saturday night, Sunday morning, maybe 4 a.m. somewhere like that. Did you have the opportunity to listen to them live as they were on back then?
Yeah, I know them brothers. They from Queens.
Yes, they are. Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Just
you
a
could.
lot of superstar. Yeah.
Just a lot of superstar. Yeah. If you could, if you could put me in contact with them, I'd love to bring them on too, man.
All right, I'll look for the number and I'll forward it to you. Yeah.
If you would.
Brothers.
If you would.
Yeah.
Now they did a song called "Peace to Allah and Justice." Was that their original song, or is that something that was created in the 5%?
I believe that's their. I believe that is their. That's their song.
Yes. Because Wise Intelligent from Poor Righteous Teachers said that they created that song, and they did a version of it, and I think Brand Nubian on their second album did a version of it. Are you familiar with those?
Not too much. I know both of those brothers from those groups. Yeah, but not too much. Too familiar with it.
Okay, so now 5% culture impacted rap music and the Black consciousness movement of the late 80s going into the early 90s. How were some of the ways that the Nation of Gods and Earths impacted the culture of hip hop?
Well, the language for sure. A lot of people now talking about word is life, word up, word is bond, word to my mama, word. You know, the way that the dress, being positively dressed, not tacky, but clean, you know, being sharp, being well spoken, being more conscious of our diet, leave that swine alone. No pork on my fork. So the language, the style, the dress codes, a lot of that was influenced, and just Black pride in general, Black pride among the youth. Because, you know, sometimes if knowledge get to a person who is 30 years old and above, sometimes they may be too stuck in their ways to really want to change up, or too concerned about how other people will view them or treat them. So the youth is more, hey, I got to be me, you know, and so they'll be more open and readily to accept and do whatever, you know, to keep the integrity of who they are, as opposed to someone that may be on payroll or whatever the case may be, just stuck in their ways.
Okay, so now they're saying that the B-boy stance also comes out of the Nation of Gods and Earths. Why did the Nation of Gods and Earths do that?
That wasn't necessarily intentional, you know, but a particular way that we stood, I stand on my square, just like today you may hear people talking about 10 toes down, you know, it's a confirmation and showing that I am confident in who I am and what I am saying. And I'm serious. So it's a serious stance. Just like a soldier may stand at attention. I'm being serious. I'm being attentive.
So now also you had use of the word peace. A lot of people say peace now. I don't think they know where that comes from. That originated with the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths. Is that correct?
To my understanding, yeah.
Okay, because before then,
Absolutely.
I don't think in Black culture people greet each other by saying peace.
Right. Well, whether we do or not, I mean, it's always good too, and you know. But if we can treat one another with love, put love first, then we will have a much better relationship with one another. You know. So I come to you in peace. I don't come to you with no craziness. Come in peace, but you know, I'm ready for war if necessary.
Come in peace, but I'm ready for war. See, that's that duality.
Yeah.
So you got
absolutely.
Number 8 in the supreme mathematics is build and destroy. That's the concept of duality. You gotta be willing to build and you gotta be willing to destroy if need be. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. You always want to increase, because build is the increase on the positive and decrease the negative. And sometimes you have to most definitely look at yourself. Michael Jackson said in the song, The Man in the Mirror. Look at yourself. What can I do to improve my life and thereby be a better servant to my people? What do I need to cut out or reduce or eliminate in my life so that I can be a better person, a better servant to the people? So that's the build or destroy.
Okay, so now how has this benefited you in your personal life? Can you give us some examples of how you benefited from being involved
Oh
with
my
this?
goodness. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. One, um, well, lately I had a job. I know I'm a servant. I like to work with people, and I was working with people with disabilities, intellectual disabilities. I was very good with my client and kind to my current client who was of age 30 plus, but could not speak and could not even use the bathroom on his own.
Mm.
Yeah. So imagine you having to tend to someone who's taller than you, heavier than you, and you have to clean that person's rear end because they cannot do it for themselves. You have to change their pamper and all that other stuff as a grown person. And then you notice in line of your duties that there's some scars, there's some stuff going on with your client now that he's been relocated to a new housing spot, and you report it, you document it, you write it, you complain about it, and only to have the person who was responsible for taking care of him, his housing, convince the parent who's not involved with his own son's life to switch companies, and then the company that they switch from then penalize you for doing your job and terminate you. That's what happened to me recently. So if it wasn't for knowledge of self, I would not be able to still continue to function in a way that I'm able to function and maintain myself. But it's with the knowledge of self gave me the foresight that, you know what, I better, the saying, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Well, I had more than one source of income. So when that door closed of 40 hours a week and that income left, I still had two other spots going on so that I can maintain my livelihood and then still enjoy this car that I'm in. I still got a car note where I would have been messed up to lose if I only had one job and then that job terminates you. So yeah, so that's just one example of how the non-self benefited me.
Okay, so now when you start getting knowledge of yourself and you're learning things that most people around you are not learning, it can facilitate ego because you know something, you're in the know, like you know something that other people don't know. Did you go through a period of time where you kind of thumbed your nose at the 85% and saw them as a negative when you were younger?
No, because personally, I look at myself. I didn't always know. I didn't always know this. Despite the fact I came from a loving home, never had to want for anything, I didn't know this part. And I understand why I did not know. My parents didn't know. Your parents are supposed to be the ones supposed to teach you certain things. And then we go to school and they don't teach you certain things. So when you get the lessons to get knowledge of self, you understand why your parents did not know or why the school is not teaching you certain things. Just like I know I take children to school in the morning, for example. That's another one of my sources of income. So I had a conversation with them, explaining to them, one of the young men, they three of them in high school. So one of them asked me about the politics and what I feel about politics. I said, there was a time I was ignorant about politics. Politics is the administration of all resources. Who gets what, how much, when, and that's what politics decides and determines. Another one was about what's the difference between 4th of July and Juneteenth.
Right.
Simple stuff like that. What year was July 4th? What year is known as the beginning? So after a while, they among themselves, and it came. Oh yeah, one of the young men said 17 something. Then the other one said that they were stuck. So I said, all right, you're halfway there. 1776. Now, what was the condition of black people in America in 1776? See, I like to engage, have people think for themselves. Not always good to give out the answer. Make them think. and then you fill in the blanks when necessary. So 1776, July 4th, all people were enslaved. Our ancestors, our great-great-grandparents were enslaved. So we had to fight for our freedom. So the 5% was back then. Anyone that participates in the resistance. So 1865 is when it's known, and we have Juneteenth for us to have our liberation, so to speak, Emancipation Proclamation, January 1863.
Okay,
So knowledge of self sheds light where there's darkness or ignorance, or fills in the gaps. That's what knowledge of self does.
now there is an annual show and prove, but is the Father Allah's birthday celebrated as a holiday among the nation of gods and earth?
Some people do, and why not? And that'll be February. The show and prove is in June.
That's correct. That's correct.
Right, and that right. But yeah,
So,
absolutely.
February 22nd. That's a day for some people.
Yeah, absolutely acknowledge, him coming to physical existence. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Among other people, just like you mentioned, Marcus Garvey. Because there's a long line of brothers and sisters that should be recognized for their contribution to the struggle, and that's how I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Various people at different times all made their contribution.
Absolutely. So the drill, and years ago it was more popular than it is now. The drill was the drill, meaning like the thing that you did. It was asking somebody what the day's mathematics is. What can you tell us about the culture of asking a person what the day's mathematics is? What's the point of that? What's the reason for that?
Well, the reason for that is to open up dialogue and to make sure among the brothers and sisters that we're on point with what time it is and what must be done. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. I want you to share with me what's in your mind and what's in your heart as it relates to today's degree or today's mathematics. Tell me something. Teach me something. Share with me. Share the mental groceries, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be stingy. Each one teach one. Each one reach one.
So it's a way to keep each other on point. Is it safe to say that?
Right. Keep on point and to make sure and help each other grow. Building is growth. It's growth. So yeah, absolutely. That's what it's about.
Okay, so now I don't.
And because there's so many distractions. There are so many distractions today, and that's why it's necessary to be strong in who you are and what's going on.
Now, I don't see that among the young people today like I used to in terms of them asking each other what the mathematics is and building and adding on. How do we bring that culture back, in your opinion?
Well, stick with basics. The basics were and are to engage other brothers and sisters, in a way that not to repel, because we don't want to destroy relationships, but we want to improve and enrich relationships. So it's the approach and the method by which you do it. And what has happened, and there's always been a force that's working against us improving ourselves on any level. That's why it was necessary for the media to put out that we were a gang, so that parents would be afraid to allow their children to engage or mix and mingle and play with those that's known to be 5%ers. Because we are gang, we're the young terrorists, if you will, that type of mentality. So that has caused a lot of people to shy away, if you will. And that's why that's why we don't see too much activity among young people that we used to see back in the day. But now we have social media. So there's a lot of dialogue and conversation taking place on social media. So what was outdoors is now indoors, if you will. But
back full circle.
Because sometimes people can get too comfortable. You know, many of us, you know, are comfortable where we got a nice home, ride, whatnot. So some of us feel there's no need to struggle. There's no need to do certain things or say certain things that we used to say and do because we're comfortable. You know, and like I was building with my brothers, you know, there's no retirement for this. There's no retirement for this.
Right.
We got, in the words of Frederick Douglass, we got to constantly agitate. And they got to know how to agitate. But the bottom line, you got to agitate. Power concedes nothing without a demand. So going back to the politics now, some young people, we have to make demands. When the politicians, whether they Democrat or Republican, when they go to certain communities, they got to talk about specifics. What is in it for that community in order to earn their vote? For us, all you got to do is smile or sing a song, you know, and hey, we'll vote. In the book by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Message to the Black Man, there's a section in that book that talks about politics. And the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad says that until we have a candidate that's not afraid of the white man, we're going to withhold our vote. We're not going to participate in that. When we have a candidate that will address our needs and who's not afraid, then we'll put the full nation behind that candidate. But until then, that's white folks' business. Because at the end of the day, the wolf, as Malcolm X said, the wolf and the fox both want to eat you. One is more upfront with their intentions. Other one will smile in your face. So that's the fox. That's the Republican and Democrat, respectively. And again, no demands, not asking for nothing. Don't expect to get anything. Like Steve Harvey was telling us, he was talking that mess. Don't expect to get anything. Maybe next year, next election. That's crazy.
Now, is the Nation of Gods and Earth encouraged to get involved with politics? Because I know the father got a building from a sitting elected official at the time. So is politics something that the nation stays away from, or is the Nation of Gods and Earth encouraged to get involved in politics?
It's an individual thing, but knowledge comes first. So once you get the proper knowledge, then you will know how to act and how to move accordingly. So it's not a policy of the nation as a whole per se, because we're not an organization where somebody on the top, this is the order, this is what you do, and blah, 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 and then let everybody moves accordingly. So it's not like that at all. But once you have the knowledge, proper knowledge, then you know what to do and how to do it.
You said, well, I know at least the NYPD has mischaracterized the Nation of Gods and Earth as a gang. And you're saying they did that to try to discourage people from joining. Did that work? Because I don't think that worked. Do you think that worked? Their trick to try to...
To a degree, yeah. To a degree, you know, some come, some go. Some don't want to be involved. Yeah. I mean, you know, propaganda is necessary in war. And we're in a war.
Absolutely.
It's necessary. So, but if you don't know that, then you don't understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said, brother. So you've been involved since 1977. How has the culture changed in your opinion, or has it changed?
Some for the good, some for not so good. But that's how everything goes that way. It's just like it's a relationship. There are good times and they're not so good times. You just got to weather the storm. And we're in a storm. And that's why they're saying only the strong survive.
You know, I've seen them saying that Nation of Gods and Earth has millions of members worldwide. Is that true?
It's true. It's possible. I didn't take no count. There ain't no census.
Right.
And in a way, it's good. You know, in a way, you know, I look at things, I strive to look at everything in a holistic way. You know? And when you don't know for sure who exactly is the 5%, in some respects, that's good. Because not everybody changes their name and don't need to. You know? It's what you do will dictate as to what side of the fence you're on, what you do. That's why I said, the resistance came from many of our people. They didn't have quote unquote righteous names, but they did the work. Harriet Tubman was a 5%. Okay. Okay. So, when you look at things from a holistic point of view and remove the emotions, you get to see things a lot clearer and put things in its proper perspective, and give credit to where credit is due. And that's what we need to do today.
Okay, now the father-in-law was assassinated in 1969. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Took his body. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we still don't know. Like it's still unresolved. Like what do we know about the murder of the father?
Well, I probably know as much or just as little as you know. It's unresolved. But you know what? It's not stopping anything. It was the hope of this government that's behind it, that by taking the father out, that it would stop. But as you can see, here we are. You sought me out. Here I am. So it didn't stop nothing.
Okay.
It would be nice to know and get that resolved. But in the meantime, we got to do the work to improve the quality of life of all people. It ain't about no damn election. Like that's what's going to be our savior. Remember, we didn't come here on a Mayflower. And we got to keep that in mind. And that's what I told them young folks taking to school this morning. We didn't come on a Mayflower. And you have to look at the world through the eyes of being, as Malcolm says, one of the victims of Americanism. Don't let the comfort of life fool you.
Have you seen the culture grown from 1977 to now? Has it gotten bigger?
Well, I believe it definitely has gotten bigger. It's become more worldwide as opposed to something exclusive to just America or the wilderness of North America is what we call it. Where before, for the most part, confined here, but now it's all over.
How did it spread so quickly, though? Like the Nation of Gods, and if they didn't have a newspaper, nobody had a talk show on the radio. How did this spread so quickly from New York City?
Word of mouth. Old school, my man. Word of mouth. The truth is the truth. The truth is the light. And just like myself, I heard certain things that sparked an interest and a desire. And when you're hungry, you're gonna go look for the food. So that's what people are doing. They're looking for the psychological food to nourish their soul. The yearning deep inside. I like to know. I want to know.
Yeah. So you talked about electoral politics, and you touched on the history and so forth. Where do you see the culture going in the future? Like, do you see it continuing to grow? Is it something that's going to get bigger, or is it something that's going to be kind of like people talk about it, but a lot of people are not involved with it?
Well, the truth is the truth, and those that love truth and love reality, they will grow. They will expand with it. You're always going to have the good, the bad, and the ugly, no matter what.
Yeah. Now the teaching is to teach the children 120 lessons. Is that correct?
Absolutely. That's the foundation. Then from there you go wherever, but that's the foundation, and that is correct. Teach the young. Like I said, people that are stuck in their ways after 25, 30 years, 35 years, it's difficult sometimes to reach someone like that unless their back is against the wall or they hit rock bottom, and now they want to change. It's just like someone who's been an alcoholic or a drug addict. It's difficult for them to make that change on their own unless circumstances creates that strong desire to change. You have to have a want.
Yes, it's been popular culture for a long time, and it has had quite an impact in the music. And I'm noticing that the artists are not necessarily involved anymore, and the music is it's going left. Do you think that we need to have that back in the music where people are talking about 120 and speaking in mathematics to facilitate some agreeable change among us? Because the violence is off the chain right now.
Well, you got to understand, when we call America or saying living in America, we're in the belly of the beast. That's not something just to sound cute or fancy. That's real. We're in the belly of the beast. So the music industry is controlled by the opposition. So they want a particular type of message to get out, a message that's going to make us more destructive to one another as opposed to uplifting of one another. That's the build or destroy factor. And music is a medium in order to facilitate one of those two things or both at the same time. Increase the craziness, which will feed the prison industrial system and cheap or free labor as a result. So it's necessary to control the music. And this is why today you hear more of the garbage that's out there, because they understand, as the OJs in their record, message in the music.
So you think there's been a deliberate attempt by the system to steer the music away from consciousness and more into ignorance?
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. Yes. By design. That's why to do for self has to include when you have your own. When you have your own, then you can be in control. It's just like this podcast. If you control it, you're owner. You dictate what is being said and the length of time, as opposed to you are working with somebody and you have to follow their particular agenda. Same thing.
Yeah. Now, this idea of do for self, is that in the lessons? Because I know that was taught in the Nation of Islam, but does that appear in the lessons?
Yeah, it's in there. It's in the mathematics.
Okay.
So to do for yourself, to be the maker and owner.
Okay. So now you said mathematics. The father got a large majority of the lessons from the Nation of Islam, but he added some things himself. What did he create and add to those lessons?
Supreme mathematics, supreme alphabets.
And what about actual facts, solar facts? That all comes from the Nation of Islam too?
Yeah. But we have to remember what is the actual fact. So even so, the things that's written and as actual facts, there's more to what is the actual fact.
Meaning?
Besides, meaning that if the actual facts is confined mainly to what is the square inches of the planet Earth, for example. Okay, that's nice to know. The Pacific Ocean is how much area does the Pacific Ocean cover, or Atlantic Ocean cover? That's good. How many feet is in a mile, and so forth. That's good. But what I'm saying, there's a lot more. So that's why 120 is a foundation, so that you use that as a platform. But there's much more to learn than just that. But we appreciate that.
We got excuse me, Def Rocker in the chat said the father also added the 12 jewels. Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, we want to thank Def Rocker for that question. He added supreme alphabet, supreme mathematics, and the 12 jewels. Now, this is all stuff that he came up with on his own?
Well, again, I was not there, but I believe so.
Okay.
So I can't say that as being an actual fact. You know what I mean? That's why you have things that's called speculations, and what's been written, who said what,
Okay, now last question on the subject of speculation. The father was in Vietnam, and I don't know how much you know about the MOVE organization, but John Africa had also gone to Vietnam, and he came back and he started an organization. They were vegan, they were planting and growing their own food, they were doing for self. The father-in-law went to Korea, and he came back and started an organization. John Africa went to Korea also. I think I might have slipped and said Vietnam, but either way, they both went to Korea, came back and started organizations, and were saying things that were decidedly different than what the average black person was saying at the time in the 1960s. Do you think that his time in Korea impacted his personal philosophy, saying that you are the God as opposed to looking outward for the God, which is like an Eastern concept? Do you think his time in Korea impacted his thinking?
Sure, because when you join the military, there are things that you learn that is going to be essential to your survival. So anything that you learn that's a positive is good. And now when you come back home, the things that you learn, you can incorporate that when you want to share with other people. I met Pam Africa, which is related to the MOVE organization. Very, very positive, beautiful sister. And that's another example of how people get knowledge from wherever, whoever, and use that to advance. That's building, to advance yourself and your people. So anything that we do that is a plus, that advances our people, is a good thing, regardless of what name they want to call themselves or the group or organization. If it's a plus for us in the right direction, excellent, right on. And we are taught as gods and nurses 5% to always choose the best part. We choose what's useful, or in the words of Bruce Lee, be like water, be able to adapt, and we take what works. If we work, we take it. If it don't work, we discard it. That's the build or destroy factor. Oh,
Bruce
man,
Bruce Lee also said, absorb what is useful, reject what is useless.
Saying the same thing, different words, but yes. Same concept.
All right, brother, peace a lot. I want to thank you for availing time from your schedule to do this, because I see you're very busy. And we made a few attempts before today to get you on. It didn't happen because you were so busy. So I do appreciate you making time to be with us today. You want to give out any social media or anything in case a person might want to reach out to you and continue the conversation?
On Facebook, I'm not much of someone on social media, but on Facebook, Magnetic Tyson, Tyson, Tysun. You can find me there on Facebook, okay. Magnetic Tyson. Okay. And I think there's more than one site. So the one where I think I have a picture of Sankofa picture, we got to look back, recognize where we came from so that we can move forward and not make the mistakes of the past.
Got it. All right, brother. I'm going to let you go. I'm going to thank you again. I want to thank the Fact family, everyone that joined us in the chat and asked questions and made comments. We appreciate that. And brother, peace Allah. Let's see if we can bring you back again in the future, brother.
I appreciate it, brother, man. Thanks for having me. And I wish you and yours the best of health and wealth. All right.
Likewise, brother. Thank you, man.
Thank you. Peace.
All right, brother. Peace.